What are the best ways to bench press if you want to maximize chest growth? Well, in this video, I'm going to be ranking 10 different ways to do a bench press, once again on a tier list from S, being should definitely try, to D, meaning do not attempt, don't do it. And then at the end, I'm going to be crowning one exercise as the best way to do a bench press and one exercise as the worst way to do one. But with that said, let's jump into the criteria. So the criteria goes like this. First, does the exercise give a good stretch on the chest? This is shown to be beneficial for hypertrophy, especially in the case of the chest because the chest benefits from stretch-mediated hypertrophy. Second factor is how stable is the exercise? If the exercise isn't stable, well, good luck trying to train to failure. Third criteria is how easy is it to progressive overload? The ideal exercise should allow us to easily add weight in order to progress. And the fourth criteria that I'm adding is the exercise pain-free? Now I know that might be a little bit of a subjective manner. Some exercises tend to be just a little bit more prone to feeling pain on compared to others. Now the caveat to this is all exercises that are shown in this video today can be done safely. Now most causes of injuries and pains felt on an exercise across the board are usually the result of improper form or preparation, but some exercises are just harder to properly perform than others. Before I jump into the list, let me explain the different areas of chest. First, we have the clavicular head, also known as the upper chest. Then we have the sternal head, also known as the mid chest. And then lastly, we have the costal head, which is known as the lower chest. Now, for the sake of this exercise, I might be stringing in two different incline variations of an exercise together if it doesn't really impact the overall dynamic of that exercise. For example, flat bench and incline bench might be lumped together if there's really no big difference between the two. So with that in mind, let's get to the first exercise. So first exercise we're starting out with is the barbell bench press. And I'm also gonna be lumping the incline barbell bench press together. And this is also known as one of the most iconic chest exercises, and for good reason, because from a resistance profile perspective, it is also a lengthen focused exercise. In fact, I think this is the one exercise where people are aware that the bottom part is the hardest, because colloquially among powerlifters, the bottom part of the bench press is called the sticking point. Now, you're able to get a pretty good stretch on the chest if you allow the bar to actually touch your chest. And from a stability standpoint, this exercise is overall very stable, so long as you actually control the eccentric instead of diving. In fact, I even recommend you do a pause rep bench press in order to not only force yourself to actually control the eccentric on the way down, but also you're able to emphasize that bottom stretch portion even more by doing so. Overall, a really good exercise to start off the list. I feel like it gets a lot of hate just because it's so popular, but this is definitely going in an A tier. Now the second exercise is technically not a bench press, but I don't know where else I'd include it, and that is the dip. Now the way I'm able to bias more of the lower chest as opposed to the triceps on a dip is essentially having a little bit more elbow flare and making sure I'm leaning forward. Now with that said, you're able to get a pretty good stretch on this exercise down here, but it's definitely not the most stable exercise, especially comparing other bench press variations. Also from a progressive overload standpoint, you're gonna need a dip belt if you wanna increase the resistance. And also kind of dangling a plate around can be a little bit annoying, so TLDR, it might not be the most readily available exercise to progress with. Now, from a pain-free standpoint, I anecdotally will say that this exercise isn't my favorite because I tend to get some clavicle pain when doing it. Also, a lot of people report shoulder pain, but that usually can be mitigated if you lean more forward. However, granted that there are different options, unless you're only bound by body weight exercises, I probably wouldn't do this exercise, so this goes in the C tier. Also, I want to mention that my favorite gym clothing brand that I wear in pretty much all my videos, Able, is having a summer sale that is live literally right now. It's up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, you can get an additional 10% off if you use code PATH at checkout, which of course will be much appreciated. The support really goes a long way. Now, from what I've seen in the past, the hot items tend to go pretty quickly. My favorite is this Force tank in this slate gray color. You've also probably seen me wear the Origin tank that I always wear in black. And then lastly, this Craft Tee in Sage is super dope. Not to mention also the core shorts are also really good. But the point is, if you've been waiting for a sale, definitely want to act fast since it's only going to be going on for a week. With that said, let's get back to the video. Now, number 3 is the decline barbell bench press. I specifically separated this variation out from the other barbell variations because of, honestly, the awkwardness of this exercise. Now, it's gonna be a lower chest focused exercise. However, because of the decline angle and the fact that we're using a barbell, our range of motion is actually gonna be limited in that more lengthened position. So while technically this exercise still does have a lengthened focused resistance profile, it's definitely not the best option if you're trying to get the most stretch in your chest, hence meaning it's probably not the best exercise for hypertrophy. Now the pros is this exercise is fairly stable and you can easily progress with weight. However, due to the awkwardness and inconsideration of all the other exercises, this will also be getting a C tier. Now number 4 is the plate-loaded incline hammer strength press. So a joke people make on this exercise is calling it a tricep exercise because of the shortened focus resistance profile. Meaning the hardest part of this exercise is actually going to be near lockout at the top of the exercise rather than when the chest is actually the most stretched at the bottom, which obviously is a negative for this exercise. But to be completely honest, that is the only negative of this exercise. The exercise is super stable. It's isolateral, meaning each arm is responsible for its own weight. And because of that stability, you can really grind your way on that last rep without having to worry too much about balancing. And the isolateral nature of this exercise is good for minimizing muscle imbalances long term. Now, a small negative that is honestly pretty subjective is this exercise can be painful if you do not take the time to set up the seat adjustment properly. Meaning if you set the seat up too high, you're gonna be internally rotating your shoulder and you can kind of feel some shoulder pain there. Or if you take too close of a grip, you can probably feel a little bit in your elbows because you're kind of pressing like this. But overall, this exercise is probably one of the hardest ones to rate because it has really good pros and pretty negative cons. So I would give this a solid B tier overall. So the 5th exercise on the list is the plate-loaded hammer strength decline press. Now, similar to the incline press, it's equally as stable, it's isolateral. You even get the seat belt, so you can make sure that you're actually locked into the exercise and not coming off. But I think the pros end there because of the decline setup. In general, your range of motion is going to be very limited, especially if you're trying to press in a more tucked elbow position compared to a more flared one. Like, I'm coming to a dead stop here, as you see. Now overall, I don't really recommend decline pressing as a whole, even if your focus is trying to grow your lower chest, because in general, your lower chest is still gonna be getting an equal amount of stimulus on your flat bench press. Well, very close to equal. In general, when people say they wanna grow lower chest, what they really want is the shape of that chest, right? Which usually comes down to 1, growing your overall chest, and 2, getting to a low enough body fat percentage so you can actually see the definition in that area because there's not fat covering it. So with that said, this exercise is going to be a immediate C tier. Let's move on. Now, if you're honestly thinking right now, well, Tyler, how the hell was I supposed to know that? Well, I highly recommend you apply for my exclusive one-on-one fitness coaching program where I pretty much take the guesswork out of getting to your fitness goals. I create a custom workout program for you, give you nutrition advice on what to eat that still tastes good while still adhering to your diet, as well as do weekly check-ins and the ability to message me at any point in time. So with that said, apply in the link in the description. Here are some transformations from my previous clients. Let's get back to the video. All right, so we had to go to another gym location and film this, but the number 6 exercise is the cable stack version of the hammer strength incline press. Now, this has all the advantages of the hammer strength incline press, but with a more lengthened focused resistance profile, which is really, really ideal here. So one thing I forgot to mention on these exercises is the arm path being more cross body rather than a straight press, allowing us to actually train that horizontal arm adduction that we wouldn't be able to do on a regular free weight press. With that in mind, the ability to press in a more cross-body fashion is going to be a more shortened focused benefit. So don't think of it as the most important thing, especially if you're already doing cable fly. However, it is worth mentioning. The only gripe I have with this exercise is it can be hard to find the specific equipment. We had to change gyms in order to get to it. But if you do have this exercise at your gym, I highly recommend you using it. This is actually another S tier. And number 7 on the list is the dumbbell bench press. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this. I'm gonna be lumping the incline dumbbell bench press into this list as well. Now this is gonna be a lengthened focused chest exercise, meaning the hardest part is gonna be at the bottom, which obviously is a big plus, but this has the added benefit of also being isolateral, meaning each arm is gonna be responsible for its own weight. And because of that, I find this exercise to be the most pain-free version of a bench press. Now because you're using dumbbells, typically you're gonna be able to get a better stretch on the chest compared to a barbell bench press where you're limited by the bar touching your chest. which of course is a really big plus on this exercise. Now, to be nitpicky, the only negative I would say on this is the setup can be a little bit inefficient, right? It's kind of involved, it's a little bit hard to do. Because the angle of a flat bench, personally for me, it feels a little bit awkward, and I can tend to get a better stretch on the chest doing incline, meaning I can get a little bit lower on incline dumbbell bench press. I'm gonna give the flat dumbbell bench press an A tier and the incline dumbbell bench press an S tier. Number 8 is the single arm dumbbell bench press. Now, this is gonna have pretty much all the stats of the dumbbell bench press, same resistance profile. Technically it's unilateral, so each arm is definitely gonna be responsible for its own weight. But contrary to most exercises when you do them unilaterally, in the case of chest exercise, especially a press, it actually makes the exercise far less stable. Because of this, I'm like literally using all my might to try to keep me sturdy and actually be able to maintain the proper position to actually press. So this is gonna be an immediate D tier. I would avoid this exercise. Number 9 is the Smith machine bench press. I'm gonna be lumping incline as well as flat bench together. And this is gonna be also a lengthened focus chest exercise, but compared to the barbell exercise and even dumbbells, this is gonna be a more stable variation, allowing us to really grind through that last rep and put all your might into it without having to worry too much about balancing. Now, like other plate-loaded exercises, you can easily increase the resistance by 2.5 pounds on each side, so 5 pounds total. But if I have to be nitpicky on this exercise, is you have to be very meticulous on the way you're setting up the seats. If you don't set up the seat position properly and really play around with it, you probably will feel a little bit of pain, or the exercise will feel quite linear. With that said, in terms of the comfortability, I think incline feels a little bit better than flat bench press, similar to with the dumbbells. So I would give the flat Smith machine bench press an A tier and the incline Smith machine bench press an S tier. Okay, so number 10 are machine chest presses. Now, I know I'm lumping a bunch of different variations of different machines all together into one umbrella bucket, but in general, they're relatively the same. Biggest difference is some's gonna be completely bilateral like this one, other ones are gonna be isolateral, but usually they're all very stable. They're usually very easy to progress with because, you know, it's a matter of just like taking them and putting them somewhere else. And if you take the time to set it up properly, they're usually relatively pain-free. That's the reason why you see a lot of older people use them, right? Now, the range of motion widely varies. If you use one of the machine presses that has like a kickstand where in order to actually set it up, you have to use your feet to press on it, generally that's gonna allow you to get a better, deeper stretch in that bottom position, which obviously is gonna be beneficial for hypertrophy. But from a resistance profile perspective, it all kind of varies, right? It's hard to kind of lump everything together, but as a whole, I would give machine variations a solid B. They're definitely a viable option if the better, higher ranking bench presses aren't available. And I would even go as far as saying that some of them, if you can find a really good one, they usually feel pretty good. So that pretty much covers all 10 exercises. So let's rank the best and worst one now. Now real quick, before I rank the best and the worst bench press variation, comment down below what do you think the best and worst exercises are. With that said, let's jump right into it. The worst exercise has to go with the plate-loaded decline hammer strength bench press. The really killer of this exercise is that very limited range of motion, especially in the more stretched part of the ROM. While sure, the movements have some benefits, it's super stable, it's isolateral, and overall it is a viable option if it's like the only piece of equipment that's free, I simply wouldn't recommend it compared to the other exercises on the list. And of course, the nail in the coffin for me is also the fact that from a resistance profile perspective, it is also going to be a more short and focused bench press variation. So that is the worst one, and by no means like the worst exercise as a whole, but on this list, definitely not the best one. All right, and now for the crown for the best bench press variation goes to the incline dumbbell bench press. And this comes down to it having the best range of motion out of any exercise on this list. It is also relatively pain-free because you can do it isolateral. So for most individuals, I think dumbbell bench press is probably the most comfortable exercise that you can actually do. Now also, if you maintain a tucked shoulder, not only is this going to help with reducing shoulder pain, but a tucked shoulder is also going to be beneficial for growing the upper chest due to the arm path being more shoulder flexion as opposed to horizontal adduction. So with that said, this exercise is also relatively stable. I would say stable enough. I don't think a lot of people are going to have issues with, losing balance on this exercise once you get the hang of it. For those reasons alone, the incline dumbbell bench press is definitely the best exercise for growing your chest. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know if you agree with my conclusion that I came to. Don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell icon in order to get these videos coming in hot as soon as I release them. I get too many comments of people saying, oh man, I just did my chest workout. I wish this video came out sooner. Well, if you hit the bell, you can probably get the video while you're at the gym and and watch it pretty much change your workout on the fly. And some of you guys may say like, oh, the criteria is literally the same as Jeff Nipper's. And like, yeah, I mean, we're both trying to maximize hypertrophy. It's not gonna be differing from person to person, right? With that said, thank you guys for getting this far in the video. Let me know if you want me to continue the series, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.